The major theme of this exhibition is ambitious purity, which can be seen in terms of both the subject matter, the use of the icons that he uses, but also just simply in the materials and the simplicity of the show, which is deceptive. You have a variety of motifs that he's worked with for some time that recur again and again, but each is different and manipulated in a different way. And for this exhibition he was very much thinking about the LA light and the way that that is very particular and informs the space, but also the exhibition. The work itself can be seen as pretty simple, but it is dealing with basically the nubbins of what sculpture is. It's what happens when materials meet, when objects meet, and the way that they can be articulated through simple manipulation, twists, bends, and the use of colour can be very directive. With the work Alan Watts, Mark's returned back to a motif that he's used quite a bit in the past. It's basically an oversized coat hanger which is then manipulated through space. It's twisted, it's turned, and through that it turns into something else. And from various angles it becomes ambiguous, its meaning is lost, and through the scaling up and the colouring it also takes it somewhere else. The naming of it also directs it somewhere else because it's a name of a person, and that's where the narrative comes in. That's what the viewer is led to work out. It comes back to this ambitious purity in terms of material. Generally he uses sort of industrial materials and industrial processes. With Alan Watts, the coat hanger, it's steel, it's lacquered with automotive spray paint. It's just a return to basic sculptural principles and materials. With this work, Rough Diamond, Mark has taken a slightly different approach in terms of colouring it, more like a hand-finished paint, but also it's more subtle and it has degrees of sort of green and black running through it. So it's articulated in a slightly different way, but again it's about the scale and the body and the way that the form sort of crumples and has been manipulated by the artist. So it relates to the other works, but it is different in the way it's been handled, both in terms of the material and in particular the paint. Rough diamond is, as the title suggests, is a diamond that's been roughly formed out of material that has been manipulated by the artist. It's like he's wrestled it into the shape and then it's simply suspended from the ceiling in order to hold its shape. So it's very simple, but it also is slightly ambiguous in terms of the fact that it's overscaled. With the phone sculpture, Mark is reusing a motif that he's used in the past and twice in this exhibition. It's the public payphone, and here he's scaled it up and turned it into a bronze object, which is high art, and then he's combined it with this steel twisted tube which articulates the phone, both twists it but also it grounds it as well. So you've got this very high-low use of materials, and then that's reinforced again with the use of this high-res, high-vis yellow safety colour that he uses, and then it does something odd with the bronze as well, which is left in its raw state. So it's a combination of the rough and the smooth and the way that those things sort of play off each other. This work, Ring, we kind of see Mark working with the most simple of materials, brass, and it's sort of untreated, uncoated. So in some ways it's the most reductive of the work, and the fact that there's not much to it, which again is very deceptive, and a lot of his work is about that deception. It's a ring that he has manipulated and twisted, and you can sort of see by the scale of it, it relates to the body, and it has this strange anthropomorphic thing where you can understand it as it has been twisted and articulated through space. And then just very casually leant up against the wall as though it was just meant to be. But it's a perfect, endless ring in brass, untouched. In this work, Star, Mark probably has one of his most recognisable motifs. It's the star that seemingly has fallen from the sky, landed, and in some ways become disrupted. And again, it's just a simple articulation of some points that twist it and take it away from being the simple structure that's then just landed, is reinforced again by the use of colour. There's very particular teal to being in a local environment here in LA. The colours are very particular to the environments. There have been some very dark ones, but but this is one of the lighter ones, and probably one of the last ones in the series. The little articulations with the star, you can see again and again in his sculpture. It's about the way that things, these little twists, take it away from being a functional, perfect object into being a slightly disrupted, broken object. With this work, Mark again is using the motif of the public telephone, but this time in a very sort of precise way, in the way that the phone is made up of these dots, and he articulates that through the use of these lights. But beyond that, he scales it up and turns it into this constellation of lights. And this work was important. It was the last work installed, and in some ways it's the work that really pulls the whole show together and has a dramatic effect also within the space, that it brings this wall very much forward and includes it into the space and ties all the works together. The challenge is really with the installation with the physicality of the works being large and heavy, and then even to the fact that this light work was pretty much mapped out, but it's not until you're in the space that you're actually drilling holes in the wall and things that you know exactly where they're going to go. But it is also the lovely moment when at the end of it all you turn the lights on and the whole thing comes together.